Continue now our Big 12 opponent previews, if you will, with the voice of the Iowa State Cyclones. He is John Walters, just completed, he told us during the break, 20 years. Congratulations on that, John, and thanks for joining BYU Sports Nation.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, the Cyclones are a program with a ton of pride, have had great success. We know all about Breece Hall. We followed him closely because he's playing with former BYU quarterback Zach Wilson in the New York Jets, and we're looking forward to him being healthy and doing his thing. So there's a connection there. But outside of that, what does Iowa State or your general Iowa State fan think about BYU besides the Zach Wilson-Breece Hall connection?
I don't know if they've thought much about it. They need to. They need to start thinking about it because I think it's going to be one of the really great environments in the new Big 12 conference. I'm sure they have given that some thought. And, you know, when the schedule came out and you saw of the 4 new teams coming into the league, which 2 were Iowa State going to play, or 3, or whatever the number might be, it ended up that they were on the road for the 2 games they're going to play. So they're playing at BYU and at Cincinnati. And I think those are 2 of the tougher tests among the 4 teams entering the league. Certainly, I think BYU is going to be a tremendous environment. It'll be the biggest stadium in the new Big 12 once Texas and Oklahoma leave. Iowa State will actually be the 2nd biggest stadium. Yeah. So I anticipate a full house when Iowa State plays there and the other teams in the new Big 12 play there. And certainly they can expect that when they come to Ames. And I think it's going to be a really fun rivalry to get started. I'm excited about it.
November 11th. It's going to be great. Certainly last year was a tough season for Iowa State, 4-8. What are the expectations generally this season for the Cyclones?
Yeah, I think the thought is that hopefully that was kind of the one-off season. I mean, if you look at Matt Campbell's first year when he came in, it took a little while to get the program off the ground, although he did get Iowa State competitive in that first year. They went 3-9, but they were in all those games except for maybe 1 or 2. And after that, they really did very well over the next 5 years, and then had the season where they kind of fell back a little bit last season. They went 0-6 in Big 12 conference games decided by a score or less a year ago. And they're going to be in a lot of those games every year. That's just the reality of Iowa State football, and it's a good thing because before Matt Campbell arrived, there were games where you weren't convinced that Iowa State could be competitive against anybody. But now with him here, you certainly feel like Iowa State, if they play well, has a chance against anybody in the league, no matter where the game is, no matter how good that other team is. And that's been proven over time as Iowa State's won in every Big 12 stadium under Matt Campbell. But it's last year they didn't win those close games, and they're going to be in them again. I think the reality is that pretty much every year you're going to play 6 to 9 games decided by a touchdown or less. And how are you going to do in those? Let's say 7 is the number. Are you going to go 5-2? Are you going to go 2-5? That's what's going to determine what kind of a season you have, and that's really true across, I think, what this new Big 12 is going to be. I think it's going to be very competitive top to bottom. It was like that in basketball a year ago where absolutely anybody could beat anybody. And I think it's going to be very competitive in that way in football too. So I think the overall feeling among the Cyclone fans is that hopefully last year was the aberration, you know, not the norm. And we'll see if Iowa State can get back to being an above 500 team and going to bowl games again this season.
Matt Campbell, certainly with that competitive nature, he's got this gravity about him. You hear his players talk about him. There's like, you know, you feel the vibe and his desire to win. Who did he add this offseason that you feel like, okay, this is a guy that all Big 12 fans should know about? Maybe he's off the radar now, but who did Matt Campbell add to the roster this season that BYU fans and all other Big 12 opponents need to know about?
Well, they added a very good recruiting class. And he doesn't go into the transfer portal very much, but the recruiting class of high school players coming in is excellent. Some of those guys might have an immediate impact. Jack Sadowski at linebacker, I think, could be a guy that can compete for the starting Mike linebacker position. But overall, when you talk about guys that can make that immediate impact where fans across the league would recognize that, I think you do have to look at more of the older guys coming into the program. And certainly, I think Jaden Higgins at wide receiver is a guy that can make that immediate impact. You've got to replace Xavier Hutchinson, who the last 3 years in college football, no wide receiver in the nation had more receptions than Xavier Hutchinson. Wow. And now he's with the Houston Texans. And so that's a big hole, big shoes to fill. But I think Jaden Higgins coming in from Eastern Kentucky, where he had 10 touchdown receptions a year ago, has really good size, a good catch radius. I think he's a guy that can come in and have that immediate impact at the receiver position. I think the other thing is you just look for guys that are already within the program to emerge, because Iowa State really is a player development type program. And so you hope that guys make those gains year to year. And certainly there's some candidates to do that within the roster. And I think that has to happen for Iowa State to get back to the kind of success that they had been getting a little bit more accustomed to under Matt Campbell.
Nate Chilhouse is the new OC, upgraded from running back and wide receiver. Former Wisconsin running back, tried to high-five a ref after a touchdown, I think I remember, which is fun.
Illinois quarterback. Illinois quarterback.
Illinois, thank you. How many refs is he going to try and high-five this year, and how do you think the offense is going to change?
Can't answer question one, and I can't answer question two either. Although I will say that my opinion is that you're not going to see a drastic change in the style of offense that Iowa State plays, because Matt Campbell has a formula for winning at Iowa State that relies heavily on your defense, ball possession, ball control offense, trying to have sustained drives that move down the field over, 8 to 10 plays where you're chewing up some time off the clock. And they're not a quick strike offense like some around the Big 12 are. They're capable of it, as you see on that play right there, but they are more likely to beat you with a 10-play, 75-yard drive. And I think that benefits them the most, because then they allow that defense to stay fresh and go do its thing. And last year, Iowa State's defense led the Big 12 in every category. And you're like, well, how in the world do you go 1-8 with the best defense of the Big 12? But the offense did take a step back last year. It struggled. I think Tom Manning, the outgoing offensive coordinator, had some very good years. They had some of the best offenses in Iowa State history under his direction. He's back with the Indianapolis Colts. But I think Nate Chilhouse is one of the young, really bright minds in college football, and I think he was ready for and due for that kind of a promotion. And so I think more than anything, it'll just bring a fresh voice into that offensive meeting room and a fresh outlook. And Nate's a very positive, outgoing guy who connects well with the players. He's got great relationships with the players. I think a big part of what his success will be, how will the other new coaches that have joined the staff on the offensive side of the ball make an impact? And Ryan Clanton comes in as the new offensive line coach. He was at Northern Iowa and did a great job there, put some guys in the NFL. And I think if Iowa State could get 5 to 10% better on the offensive line, then you could see the reestablishment of that running game, which took a really big step back last year, in large part because of injuries. But, for years, it was David Montgomery, Kene Nwangu, Breece Hall. I mean, Iowa State's produced some really good running backs under Matt Campbell. And so, can they get back to that level? I think it's possible, but so much of it depends on how good they are up front. And I think that's where, if Iowa State can make, a 5-10% gain, then all of a sudden everything on the offense looks better. And Iowa State doesn't have to get light years better offensively. They just have to score 3 or 4 more points a game. And if they can do that, their defense is certainly good enough, at least on paper, again, going into this season, that they should be very competitive.
John Walters is the voice of Iowa State football. He is with us on BYU Sports Nation. Everybody we talked to through the Big 12, and again, we're coming from a standpoint of being one of the 4 new guys in town, tells us that this year the conference just seems kind of wide open. It's anybody's league. Well, John, you've been around the conference for a long time. Who's the favorite, in your opinion, to win the Big 12? Or is it truly wide open?
I think it's closer to wide open than being able to sit here and say who the true favorite is. Now, most people will say Texas because they do have a lot of talent coming back, and I understand that. But pretty much every year, Texas has been picked to top the Big 12 conference, or Oklahoma. And Texas really hasn't held up its end of the bargain too often. They've been good occasionally, but they haven't been sustained great over the last 10 years. And, with all the resources they have and the talent they have, they print money there. I mean, you would think that they could get to the top of the league and stay there, but they haven't been able to do that. And so I'm not ready to crown them just yet. I think they have a chance to be very good because they have a ton of talent. Oklahoma is always a factor, but they struggled last year. They took a step back last year, as did Iowa State. So, Ken Baylor, which took a step back last year, get back on track under Dave Aranda. There's so many unanswered questions. And Oklahoma State's a program that really gets overlooked year to year, but is always up there. in the Big 12 race. Now, they took a huge hit in the transfer portal, so I'm not sure that they'll be able to get back to the top of the conference. But, you look at the last few years, and everybody always talks about Texas and Oklahoma when they talk about the Big 12. And I get it, okay? I understand. They have the resources. They have the biggest stadiums. They have the best recruiting classes. They should be at the top of the conference. But if you look at the last two Big 12 championship games, you had Kansas State and TCU last year, and you had Oklahoma State and Baylor the year before.
Right.
The year before that, it was Iowa State and Oklahoma. So, it is a wide open league. And I think it will continue to be that. I think that's one of the things that makes it fun. This is one of those conferences, guys, that I think when fans that aren't necessarily Big 12 conference fans are just flipping through the dial on a Saturday afternoon, and they come across one of these competitive Big 12 games, it'll draw them in, and they'll stay with it. And, I think when the conference shakeup was announced that Texas and Oklahoma were leaving that first stage, everybody just thought the other 8 are just dead in the water. There's nothing to these 8 programs. But I just mentioned 4 programs that played in the last 2 Big 12 championship games, right? And, and those games were well watched nationally. The ratings were great. And, it's an exciting brand of football. It has been for years. And I think you guys are going to love being a part of the Big 12 Conference.
Cannot wait, to say the least. And looking forward to having you and Iowa State in Provo at LaVell Edwards Stadium on November 11th. We appreciate the time on a Monday, John. Keep up the good work. And again, thanks for the insight.
Anytime. Thanks for having me, guys.